George Saunders is a best-selling American author whose fiction often focuses on the absurdity of consumerism and corporate culture. Though his writing is laced with tragicomic elements, critics cannot ignore the moral questions that arise in his works. Saunders is often compared to American author Kurt Vonnegut, who in fact served as an inspiration for Saunders with his blend of satire, gallows humor, and science fiction. George Saunders was born on December 2, 1958 in Amarillo, Texas, but grew up in the south suburbs of Chicago. He graduated from Oak Forest High School and went on to receive a B.S. in Geophysical Engineering from the Colorado School of Mines in Golden, Colorado in 1981. In 1988, he obtained an M.A. in Creative Writing from Syracuse University. Saunders' scientific background has played an important role in his writing. From 1989 to 1996, he worked as a technical writer and geophysical engineer for Radian International, a New York-based environmental engineering firm. After working with an oil exploration crew in western Indonesia, he joined the faculty of Syracuse University in 1997 and has been there since. Saunders teaches creative writing for Syracuse's MFA program while still publishing his own fiction and nonfiction works. In 2006, Saunders was awarded a $500,000 MacArthur Fellowship and a Guggenheim Fellowship later that year. His nonfiction collection, The Brain-Dead Megaphone, published in 2007, was featured on The Colbert Report and The Late Show with David Letterman. Saunders won the National Magazine Award for Fiction in 1994, 1996, 2000, and 2004, and in 1997 he won second prize in the O. Henry Awards. In an interview for The New Yorker, Saunders said of himself, "I'm a teacher at Syracuse and I write short stories. That's about it." Some of his short story collections include Civil War Land and Bad Decline, In Persuasion Nation, and 10th of December. Published in 2013, 10th of December contains 10 short stories that appeared in various magazines between 1995 and 2009. One of the stories, Home, was a 2011 Bram Stoker Award finalist. The collection won the 2013 Story Prize for Short Story Collections. The book also contains the story The Semplica-Girl Diaries, the idea for which came to Saunders in a dream. In the dream, Saunders went to his bedroom window and looked down into his backyard. What he saw gave him an incredible feeling of happiness, though the image was that of the Semplica girls hanging from their microline. Saunders wrote the story as a way to explore why he was so delighted at the sight of human lawn ornaments. He wanted to describe a world in which such a feeling was reasonable and even justified. The term Semplica came from his dream and refers to the man who pioneered the technology behind routing the microline through the brain. Saunders kept the idea because it was true to his original conception of the story. He considers the most important part of his writing process to be making choices that push the story in the most interesting direction. He said, "The thing I really get excited about is dramatization." As a beginning writer, Saunders spent years trying to write a serious novel, using the skills he learned in college. However, he found that overthinking led to what he called horrible and incoherent stories. When Saunders allowed his thoughts to flow freely from his mind to the paper, he discovered that the resulting stories were much more to his liking. Saunders frequently criticizes capitalism. He tells the tales of characters whose lives are governed by money and possessions. The Semplica-Girl Diaries is just one of his stories that tells the woes of consumerism. Though the story is futuristic in its technological aspects, it is easy for the reader to imagine that this world could be our own if we continue down the path of materialistic tendencies. Emmett asked about my work. I told. He said, "Well, amazing the strange arcane things our culture requires some of us to do. Degrading things, things that offer no tangible benefit to anyone. How do they expect people to continue to even hold their heads up?" Could not think of response. Note to self, think of response, send on card, thus striking up friendship with Emmett. Returned to Torini's house, sat on special star-watching platform as stars came out. Our kids sat watching stars, fascinated. "What?" I said. "No stars in our neighborhood?" No response. From anyone. Actually, stars here did seem brighter. On star platform, had too much to drink, and suddenly everything I thought of seemed stupid, so just went quiet, like in stupor. Saunders has created an interesting world. Set in the not-too-distant future, the Semplica-Girl Diaries addresses issues such as greed and consumerism. The Torinis are the epitome of materialism, which is usually not a good trait to possess, but in this fictional society, it has become the norm. A need to keep up with the Joneses is prominent in the story, so much so that it governs how the characters behave and interact with one another. What I noticed first while reading the story was the lack of personal pronouns to describe the narrator. In this journalistic style of writing, for the most part he doesn't begin any of his sentences with I, and leaves out many connecting articles that would have made the writing flow more smoothly. It's possible that the narrator often leaves himself out due to feelings of insignificance. From the use of degrading terms such as strange, stupid, and arcane directed toward the narrator, we get a sense of the class distinction present in the story. The narrator considers himself inferior to the Trainees and other upper-class families and is treated as such. Mr. Trainee considers the narrator's job, and possibly his existence in general, to have no considerable effect on the workings of the world. The arcane thing that the narrator does is observe other people at work, such as through their recycling habits. From Mr. Trainee's commentary, it is clear that the narrator's job is in no way illustrious. This begs the question of where the line is drawn in distinguishing between social classes. Is the narrator more like the Trainees, or is he more like the Semplica-Girls, who are by their nature looked down on in society and subjected to mistreatment? Still, the narrator wants to feel accepted by Mr. Trainee. This longing to be a part of high society is what fuels the narrator's actions throughout the story. He begins the journal to record something for posterity's sake in an attempt to give meaning to his life. Later, he spends his earnings on a yard similar to the Trainees rather than pay off his bills, which serves as evidence of the materialistic society in which the story takes. This society is overly concerned with possessions. The strange aspect of the story is that the most highly valued possessions are in fact human lawn decorations. It is ironic that the narrator's job is stranger than hanging people in one's front yard. From this line, the reader is cued in to what the society holds dear. Though some aspects of the story seem familiar, it's things like the Semplica-Girls that makes the reader sure of the futuristic of this world. Though the narrator yearns for human lawn ornaments, what the reader can understand is that it all comes down to the narrator wanting to provide for his family. Leslie Trainee gets everything she wants, but the narrator notices that his own daughter, Lily, is unhappy with the state of her yard as it reflects poorly on her family status. The narrator sees how happy his kids are among the wealth of the Trainees and wants his kids to have a similar experience. By perceiving the stars as brighter at the Trainee's house, the narrator is really uttering the age-old adage, "The grass is always greener on the other side." It may seem that way to him, but we, as present-day readers, know that material belongings cannot give but so much meaning to one's life. What's really important is family, and the narrator realizes this, but he goes about pleasing them in a way that is not sustainable. Finally, the narrator's mention of this being a note to self illustrates his desire to gain status and wealth in society. He seeks to improve in all aspects of life and reach the same level of the Trainee family. However, the narrator lacks commitment throughout the story, often forgetting to keep up to date with his journal and making promises he can't keep. Therefore, his commitment to actually achieving a better life is questionable, and the reader is left wondering what exactly the narrator wants from life, when at the end of the story he attempts to forget all about the Semplica-Girls he worked so hard to buy.